Hi folks. I got a heavy one today, and I'm sorry about that. I had some really charming stuff about teaching picked out to read for you, but outside forces have overruled my agenda. I don't like talking about my own weakness and pain. The world and my friends all have plenty of it of their own. But on the other hand, I've had to grapple with the question of suicide for almost 4 solid decades now, ever since I was just a kid. And even though I can't claim to have solved the whole puzzle, I have figured out some of the pieces that still trouble others. These insights come with duty. And also, frankly, they were tough for me to get to. So, sharing them helps me feel more useful to others, which helps me feel more useful, period. A lot of people have a thing inside them that says they are good enough the way they are, and they deserve to be here. I just don't. Somehow that component was never installed in my head at the factory. I have to do useful or helpful things continually just to tread water. Anyway, my childhood was crazy, but that's true of a lot of people from my generation, from all sorts of backgrounds, conservative and ultra-wild. We are the famous latchkey kids, after all, whose parents were so self-absorbed that they decided to rename their vast wave of neglect the gift of freedom. Now, I had an extreme version of this, raised in a commune and then sent to live with a crazy predator, and completely cut off from my parents and the whole outside world for years and years. Now, I usually chuckle when I tell people that I left home when I was 12, but it is true. And there never was any safe refuge for me after that in the entire world. And frankly, there isn't anything funny about being forced to raise yourself because others in your life simply aren't there for you when you need them. Now, this might seem weird, but the proudest accomplishment of my life isn't anything artistic or intellectual at all. It is just this, that I have taken that extreme pain, loneliness, fear, and frustration and turned them into active, open love and compassion. The sweet kid in my heart would dearly love to forgive my parents for being so harmfully foolish and letting me be groomed and then tortured by an outright psychopath, who I never would have encountered outside of the crazy commune they joined. The problem is, that sweet, forgiving kid is only one half of me. There's another half, the tough half, who was forced into existence a long time ago by circumstance. This is the one who insists justice and truth are important no matter what, and that kids' rights and feelings matter. Respect also. I actually have a poem that says a lot of this, called Caregiver Given, from my first book. Caregiver Given. When people who had whole childhoods talk about people who really did not, there is a strong common factor which they almost always skip right over. When you, as a child, realize that no matter how angry or sad you feel, you are going to have to do it all for yourself as best you can. You are split in two emotionally. And from that time forward, you are the part of yourself that looks after and the tenderness inside worth protecting. The skeleton will rise to fight past its fear, and the heart hiding behind it is proud. The bargain between these twin souls is a lifelong compact. You defend, I believe. With luck and precious lessons learned, that skillet arms and child's heart can combine powerfully to allow for new insights, approaches, and syntheses. In tougher, leaner years, hard-won armor can become a calcified sarcophagus, and the heart weeps alone inside its tower, certain it will die a virgin, uncompleted. But to judge such people crazy just because they could show sweet and sour so strongly is to forget that they became two to survive. And those two they became are not easy allies. To be their friend is to understand the pair and their purposes, to forgive the sentinel because we appreciate the treasure inside which it has sacrificed so much to guard. It is also lucky, and often most amusing. Though born the very same day and hour, they are both older and younger by far, and their trove of special hard knocks tricks ever reveals a splendid metaphysical toy box. You don't believe me? Look for yourself. Anyhow, my sentinel has his own priorities. Number one is protect that sweet, sensitive, creative kid from further harm. The trouble is, my parents, like so many others, are still stuck on the idea that the really terrible thing about child abuse is the hurt feelings of those people who enabled and allowed it. This response is, of course, very similar to many of the Catholic scandals. Silence those victims, because the discussion is uncomfortable to we who knew things were wrong but said and did nothing. Now, for years and years, every time I tried to express the intense pain that has continued to reverberate and haunt me, they have accused me of being horrible and abusive to them. I've also tried very hard to come up with potential explanations for their weird behavior, but this just makes them furious, outright offended by my never-ending attempts to understand with empathy how it was that they came to do so much harm to their own children, and then feel lingeringly angry toward them afterwards, instead of maturing to a point of apology and sympathy, which alone would make long overdue reconciliation possible. I was baffled, hurt, and angered by this brick wall denial of theirs for many years, but I think I finally have a new and powerful insight about it, thanks to a fantastic idea shared by a friend of mine from India. Hi, Arun! He pointed out that group meditation sessions, if conducted irresponsibly by someone who hasn't been educated about the risks or doesn't have the right emotional disposition to guide others well, can actually do incredible harm. He then gave a list of serious character problems which could be induced and even, in extreme cases, made more or less permanent. Now, a lot of people have an emotional reaction against an idea like that right away. But wait a minute, meditation is good. Well, this is a key to the wrong, that is, dumbed down road that our whole culture took more than a half a century ago. Meditation can do good, no question about it. But like every other thing which has measurable effect beyond mere placebo suggestion, it also has profound side effects which must be managed intelligently. Now, psychotherapy is exactly the same. It can do good, but it is not ever without risk. The matriarch of our commune was, it is now widely accepted, outright insane. And yet, her demented spoutings were regarded with absolute reverence by everyone, including a whole hierarchy of therapists she supervised, who faithfully radiated her charismatic madness and derived their authority not from serious professional qualifications, but her royal favor. Now, one of the things that both of my parents learned from their years of therapy is similar to the confidence lesson a very high proportion of Western boomers got by misunderstanding the significance of the timing of their arrival. A certainty that you have an absolute right to feel great about yourself, and life is here for you to pursue whatever you want. That it is the highest moral good to realize your personal goals, desires, and dreams as best you can. Duty, sacrifice, and connection were reduced to unprecedentedly low priorities, widely ridiculed as old-fashioned or even despised as unfair constraints. So when I say something which makes my parents feel sad or guilty, they actually think I'm violating their right to self-satisfaction. When I am outright heartbroken and crushed, they respond with indignation and even outright righteous fury, as if I invented my trauma just so I could attack them treacherously. Personally, I don't even treat outright strangers like that. I can't, because my experience has shown me what it feels like on the receiving end. When I encounter someone who is in extreme pain, it makes me want to help them. So, as much as my inner kid would love to forgive my folks, because I do understand they were just dumb kids when they made their first big mistakes, even though that excuse gets less and less adequate the more the years and decades go by, my sentinel will not allow that sort of poison in. If I was not entitled to their protection, they aren't entitled to my love, even though there is a ton of it that I would love nothing more than to share with them. Sad stuff, right? Especially because it is so completely petty and pointless. Not rare though, sadly. Not even close. The fact that they have yet to develop kindness, respect, or empathy for me and my brother, but instead treat us as adversaries who have bullied, hurt, and oppressed them unfairly for years, just adds creepiness to the toxic brew. Reminds me of Trump calling other people liars. Anyhow, ever since I first tried and failed to leave the earth, way back when I was a teenager, I have had the sense, sometimes very heavy and sometimes lighter, that my life has been entirely in my own hands. And in one way, it's all been gravy. Bonus! I shouldn't have even been here for the last 35 years. And then in another way, it is a difficult and never-ending challenge, struggling toward a goal in which I have no real deep faith or confidence. One thing I know for sure is that I'm not alone. Thanks to my own lack of emotional armor and Catherine's lifelong battles with serious illness, my sensors have been tuned in an unusual way. I don't analyze micro-expressions and body language. Rather, I actually feel other people's psychological and soul-deep pain inside my own body and heart. I'm not claiming mystic powers here, just resonance to certain difficult frequencies. Same way a trained ear hears overtones. Now, I try to respond to this sense as helpfully as I can with whatever I have to offer. Sometimes Catherine and I pour our best energies out for many years to help someone. Sometimes the best I can do is offer kind words and an open, sincere ear. In either case, I always feel my duty of compassion to be profound, if not binding, because I understand exactly how painful and lonely it is to be forced to live without it. Now, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine took her own life. I have tried, but I still can't forgive myself for not figuring out how to help her out in time. Even though we really weren't terribly close. Probably spent less than 50 hours talking together, all together. The reason I have this feeling of guilt is because I recognized so many of her inner demons and the strength she'd built to rise past her early scars. She was raised rural, conservative, and far away, but I swear she could have been my twin sister for the way she'd taken a hold of her intolerable childhood pain and struggled valiantly to finally transform it into love and compassion for the whole world. I did try in my clever fellow way. I even wrote her an essay with a whole bunch of different ways to find self-forgiveness without giving up duty or surrendering to conformity, hoping she might find at least one useful clue to lighten her load. She wrote me an 8-page critique. So compelled to remain in helping mode herself that she was unable to see that my whole effort was meant as a gift of love and recognition for her most beautiful soul. I have also lost more than one friend to something I can only call deadly logic. The world is now filled with philosophies and worldviews which take a theory which has special emotional appeal and then build a gigantic structure on top of this theory as if it was solid bedrock fact. Existentialism was the first great modern killer along these lines, and in a way it remains almost cute because its poison is so artistically pure. But it is now possible to construct rational doom and futility scenarios in the area of economics, population, biodiversity, and of course, global warming. And these are even more dangerously false logic traps, because they are actually there are more facts in the mix than pride and theory. In the myth of Sisyphus, Camus dangerously suggests that happiness is nothing but an arbitrary illusion, by starting from the assumption that adversarial logic is the way we ought to be able to find it. But when we look at history, we can see quite clearly that everyone was always wrong about their own time. I mean, always. I don't mean to say that we aren't in trouble. We really, really are. And we really need to start acting as if we notice that and care. But we do not know exactly what is happening now, or exactly what will happen as a result. It's too big and complicated for our minds. As arrogant as we may individually be, it's also too big for our souls to take this whole burden. Now, reason is the favorite tool of consciousness. But consciousness isn't even all of our thinking, and our thinking is itself tiny and weak compared to the realities, forces, and inertias of the world. The point that I'm really after here is this. When we use our intelligence to logically prove a futility, we are indulging in an absolute objective arrogance. Like an ant who thinks he comprehends all Manhattan, culture and economics included. Purest fool vanity. Anyhow, I got 3 more poems I'd like to share with you. I had to write these because, as I say, these were hard insights to find, and I wanted to make sure that others could get some use out of them. They are all from my first book, but don't get the wrong idea. All of my stuff does talk about life, playfully and seriously. I don't shy away from the heavy and dramatic because it is real and important. But I don't wallow there for sport either. I travel to the tough places only when doing so can help, and then come out of that far side to hope, love, and sweet unexpected possibility. Which, it seems to me, is about the best deal we get. Rise again, as Stan Rogers said so very beautifully. I can't lie my way to be happy. I love life, I love people, and I love understanding far too much. Pain is always going to be there for us. But so are new chances for friendship, love, learning, generosity, compassion, and deep emotional connection with others. The only thing that can ever reason those away is our own stubborn illusions and vanities. And even then they tease and wait for us forever, faithfully. Now, this first poem is called Almost Did a Crazy Thing. And at the top is a quote from Malcolm X. I'm for truth, no matter who tells it. I almost did a totally crazy thing, which I knew was nuts already, more than once, just yesterday, and with only the finest of motives. These big lies hurt so much, and are so many, and so loud. What single individual word could ever be heard or count in this din? And so to anger, tribal, and most ancient matter. Even with the most contemporary rally cries, womanist, tea party, vegan, homeschool, open carry. If my one soft voice counts for nothing, then we must all unite and yell for its force and power. except yelling cannot solve, explain, unite, and does not transcend by knowledge the lie or underlier. The cause is compromised at once, even as the new tribe which will raise its battle standard forms. My stupid error was to almost simply point out to someone who I knew was trying and sincere, passionate, committed, self-sacrificing, and good, that they were making errors of clear thinking, which did harm to the cause we both broadly share, turned off the allies needed to accomplish change, and this last would, I know, have offended them the most, also set a fatal time bomb for their precious caring heart by constructing a known impossible as an imperative. I am trying is perhaps the new allegiance oath, the new entry into self-division since they aren't, and I must try, and if only we could make everyone, and we should not yet have forgotten that abyss. We are not the problem or the solution or the medium of both or the host of a disease. We are not warriors for peace or icons of freedom. These are metaphor lies, and we must not be liars. So why, I ask, is there no greater mistake that one may 21st centurarily make than to suggest a way closer to their goal for someone who proclaims cause as identity, but loves in fact that one soapbox on that good corner? People all know where to find me now, you see? We're almost getting to be like a community. As if 1,000,000,000 to 1 odds against must be heroic, and not a comforting, giddy rush from childhood games, hand-sewn super cape, high climber jump, self-winded, righting wrongs, handling bullies, no longer running to hide under bed when things start smashing in the kitchen. Lonely hero is not an artificial construct, stripped down to fight instead of grow and love and build and share. Nor is tragic any less than the expected outcome of this oft-repeated and so wasteful experiment in will and fire. And the next one is a little more obvious. This is one of the more useful things I've written intellectually, I think. It's called Sleep, Sisyphus. A question was posed by a man who was ultimately defeated by his own challenge. And the fact he asked it so well that it has killed many others also seeking its answers shows that the question, though very dangerous indeed, is strong and does need a clear, resounding answer. Here is a case for cleaving, recognizing the trick within for what it is, and with a wink stepping out of the fatal snare. Camus raised a hero of ego who despaired to his soul because happiness could not be proven by mighty reason. But check the profile view. A petulant, whiny child. Damned universe around me! How dare life exceed control? And this last one for today is called Calling from the Riverbank. I keep seeing your wondering smile in my mind and wanting to talk to you again so I can explain to you what I want to do. I want to gather up each of the threads, the love and respect which came too late, the pain, decision, and principle which bound you. I want to follow down each trail of false logic, unmask every one of the hurtful demons inside, open up each wound and suck the poison from you. I want every misunderstanding made right, and every missed opportunity for loving comfort realized in full with interest compounded retroactively. I want to stand with you and tell the bullies off, to hug you when no one understands at all, so you remember you are entitled and it's okay. I want that teacher to fix your mark and apologize. I want all those dumb white sheep around you to admit that they were always jealous of your heart and courage. I want you to know and understand that the world loved you being in it, and we so needed you. There were less lonely roads. You were always welcome. I want to take every last small piece of sadness, repair it into love, the way you deserved it to be, and lift you all the way back up into that life. My stupid arms aren't long enough to reach you anymore. Loved your friends. Now, this is the only moment that really exists for any of us.